Welcome to KRA's The Hub, the official podcast of KRA Corporation. And now get ready to hear workforce topics and trends you need to know on the go.
Hello and welcome back to KRA's The Hub. This is Doug Foresta, and you will notice that this is not Jonathan Overall today, but Jonathan is with us. This is a Getting to Know KRA episode, and Jonathan is actually the guest today. Jonathan, welcome.
Doug, it's always great to partner with you, and it's great to have your voice on the hub as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we're kind of switching it up a little bit today. I'm normally behind the scenes. For those who know you as the podcast host of KRA's The Hub, you're also the Director of Communications and Innovation for KRA. Is that correct?
That's right.
And today we're going to talk about consulting services, KRA's consulting services. I think many people that are listening to this who are in the workforce space know KRA well, for your workforce development work. But what led KRA to expand into consulting? Like, what need were you seeing across the workforce system that prompted that move?
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Doug. I think when I think about KRA and when most people in the market think about KRA, see us as the workforce services provider. And you may recall I recently had a conversation with Mr. Atterbury, the founder and CEO of KRA. And one of the things that even after a few years of myself being with KRA was really understanding the history and the background of KRA, starting off primarily in the consulting arena. And over the last 25 years, going back to around 2000, KRA did shift at that time to offering workforce services. And when I think about consulting in today's lens, it's really a way to translate policy and helping organizations put it into practice, helping the systems of local workforce government provide clarity and confidence in leading in that space. And KRA's tagline is to provide workforce solutions that strengthen local economies. And that can be through workforce services, but also through the capacity building, the consulting that we as a company have the opportunity and the capacity to be able to offer to those that are within the space. Partners that we're currently working with, potential clients in regions that we're doing business with, and really helping to expand beyond what we're currently offering in workforce services, but even allow that to translate into successful practices with organizations and with some of the local boards that we end up partnering with.
Well, thank you so much. And you kind of started to allude to this, but can you say a little bit about, I love that, like you said, that there are many ways in which KRA can help strengthen local economies, but can you talk a little bit about the kinds of challenges that organizations are typically trying to solve when they reach out to KRA?
A lot of organizations, it's not commitment, it's not effort that they're lacking. In workforce, in human services, they're navigating complexity, both the complexity of operating within this space, but also the complexity of the times that we're living in, some of the challenges, perhaps that is reduced or lack of funding. So we're here to help offer support in the areas of strengthening performance outcomes for organizations. They're also navigating staying compliant within the legislative framework that they're working in, whether that is WIOA or TANF work. There are certain requirements that they have to abide by, both to perform at a high level, to manage their fiscal operations of their organization. And so as an organization that is in that space and has had the opportunity to scale to multiple markets throughout the nation, that experience is something that we can leverage and bring. And I think as we look nationwide, we see those challenges are not isolated to one particular area. And we've been able to deploy some of our strengths and our capacity to help begin to tackle some of those challenges. Also I think this podcast is a space where we're able to have conversations with influential leaders in workforce development and talk about the challenges that are in workforce, to talk about some of the common challenges that organizations face. And so there's really a circular connection there with what we see in our own practice of workforce services of the current challenges, conversations like the podcast that we are able to facilitate. Also at the national level, with some of our thought partners like NOB, NODUP, some of the regional partner organizations that are gathering and convening workforce leaders and workforce practitioners, talking about the challenges, but also talking about the solutions. So I believe that enables us and the role that we play within workforce development to really think strategically, to put that into practice in our organization, and to really refine some of those solutions to be able to support other organizations that are also within workforce development.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about, we actually have done at least one episode that I can think of about KRA's approach, but let's talk a little bit about that. So obviously there's other consulting organizations in workforce. Can you talk a little bit about KRA's unique approach to consulting when you take on a project?
I would say that our approach starts with listening. That's something that is embedded in throughout our organization, whether it's from the career coach or the business services representative. It starts with listening to the needs, or what we like to call the pain points of our client or potential client that we're working with. And from there, we're not just directly giving advice, but we're understanding the complexity and the needs of their organization, and then begin to have a solution-oriented conversation. Going back to the previous question, I think one thing we understand is that in this current landscape, there's a need to modernize service delivery. There's a need to ensure that we're utilizing technology. And with that foresight and understanding, there's a need to have a very clear strategy and how to operate in that space. There's a need to understand what tools and resources are available within the current marketplace specific to workforce development to help bring those solutions, not only internally for our organization, but also for those clients that we work with. So our approach starts there, developing a relationship, listening, being a trusted advisor, and being able to leverage our experience and our subject matter expertise in particular areas, and to develop together collaboratively an approach that is customized for the organization that we're working with. And so if I were to specifically look at the pillars or the areas that would be focused on, fiscal management, approaching organizations, looking at their current fiscal operations, looking for areas of improvement with efficient practices, technology. We'll look at programmatically. What are some of the programmatic challenges that an organization is facing? How can we help to alleviate some of the bottlenecks, create processes and workflows for efficiency? Operationally, as an organization that operates across the nation, operationally, we have to put some practices in place that allow every location to have some standardized practices that are strengthened and held together by our corporate operations team. And then looking at strategies, specifically on the ground, whether that is with employers, working with local businesses, having a strategic approach, and then also job seekers and community-based organizations that are part of the career services, one-stop operations, and business services that a majority of our workforce services lies in. And so from there, as we listen, as we help to develop a customized strategy for our clients, we're focused on implementation, and not just recommendations, but helping to support strategically the implementation of solutions that will ultimately see impactful results.
So that is a good segue about results, because I was going to ask you, so what typically does success look like? Like, what are some, can you give us some idea of like, what are some of the things that you would look for in a consulting relationship to say, okay, this is achieving results, this is achieving success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think sometimes the stigma with consulting is that consultants come in and they provide a plan and they just leave and that's it. But when I look at success, I really see it as leaving an organization in a stronger position today and over time than they were before. Seeing that organization set up with tangible solutions that are self sustaining. And part of that is also helping to empower the staff and key stakeholders within the organization, key leaders to help not only understand the solutions and the plan that we've collaborated and helped to develop, but also to see them strengthened and empowered to lead those efforts as well. And so part of it, I believe that there are measurable, clear goals that we can collaboratively and clearly establish with an organization as we're putting together a plan. And then obviously some of that will be over time. But again, I would go back to collaboratively and clearly establishing through the consulting process and through the planning process as we establish a clear roadmap of what success looks like, that it's not just a determination that's made by us, but it's through the process of listening and understanding some of the pain points, and then clearly over time establishing what are those milestones for success. That some of those will be future oriented, but ensuring that the organization and the key leaders feel equipped and feel empowered to now lead that effort, and to know that not only are we a trusted advisor, but we're a partner in that. And so seeing measurable performance improvement over time is ultimately where success lies, but it's really building that foundation at the beginning and throughout that I believe determines a successful consulting interaction.
I love that. Yeah, it's almost like the outcome is it's part of what flows from the process, right? If the process is going well, then the outcome will sort of follow, will follow from there. So I know we have organizations and we have leaders from organizations all across the United States that listen to this podcast. If I'm listening to this, is there a better time than another for my organization to reach out for help for consulting? Is there a specific time in the life cycle of an organization or a specific issue? Or yeah, can you say a little bit about, when is a good time to reach out, or what should an organization be looking for to say, boy, you know what, it would be helpful to bring in some consulting help?
Ideally, I would say before any challenge that's current becomes a barrier to performance or to success in an organization. Now, I say that's ideal, and that doesn't always happen that way. We find ourselves sometimes facing multiple challenges at once, and we have to, just like we're strategically planning to build or to grow, we have to prioritize those. Sometimes we have to prioritize how we respond to challenges, and I think that goes back to how consulting is really a partnership to help support an organization and to customize a solution that helps to support the organization, the workforce board, or the nonprofit that we might be working with in a way that is very timely. So I would say to really be a little bit more specific, whether you're an agency or nonprofit, if you're in the position of navigating growth and looking at how we're going to grow our organization, how we're going to scale or expand upon our current footprint, I would say that's a good time. If you're in a time and a season of transition, that's a great opportunity. Or if you're in a position where you are in the midst of change structurally within, with how your company looks from an org chart perspective, if you're in the midst of just the change in how we operate based on policy, that's a great opportunity. And that's where we come in and we take a focus and a look that is focused on modernization. and redesigning the organization and how it's going to operate within the current system. Perhaps an organization is preparing for a new procurement of services with another workforce services provider. And our lens and our perspective there can aid in that and what that perspective looks like. Responding to monitoring challenges, and especially in the fiscal contract services world, that can impact an organization. And it's not just policy, but again, how policy translates to the real life work that we do internally. Both how a company is structured, but also how is that policy carried out in real life with those that are doing the work, the practitioners that are in the field. So I would say sometimes you work with an organization and the need was yesterday, so there's a sense of urgency. So we get that, but I would really go back to those key areas: navigating growth, transition, or change management.
That's great. Yeah, I've heard this one before. I think it comes from an old book, like a business book, is a dig your well before you're thirsty. But it's also okay, like you said. I mean, you can start wherever you are, and if life happens,
and on that point, and I know we
yeah,
talk a lot about the future, but
yeah,
and that's, I think, as well as a consultant, helping to think strategically today, tomorrow, what's ahead,
hmm
and to alleviate that gap. But you're right. Sometimes you got to dig your well before you're thirsty, and think and ahead of time to try to plan and project what are the needs of tomorrow.
and towards that end, exactly. That's another segue into what I was going to ask you next, which is about, obviously there have been so many changes, even over the past year in workforce. I'm curious about your thoughts about the changing, as workforce changes, what do you think will need to change in workforce consulting? And also just how is KRA, how are you positioning yourselves to meet the needs of tomorrow?
I see consulting, the need and the shift probably more away from just technical assistance, and that's important. That's definitely needed. Something that I probably alluded to earlier is that word partnership, and that's our view in what we do. And I think as a workforce services provider, you realize you can't work in a silo. We need partnerships. And when you add that element to consulting and the strategic lens, you go from technical assistance to strategic partnerships. Right now, data, we work in a data driven field. Our performance outcomes are based off of the data that is produced from job placements to businesses that we work with, training dollars that translate into hiring opportunities, trainings for job seekers. So we work in a very data-driven field, helping organizations translate that data, tell a story with that data, connect outcomes with that data, connect strategies with data. And so I think as a consulting strategic partnership, we can really support in that area. Right now, we've had a number of conversations on this podcast around AI. And so informing organizations on AI in the workplace, helping to develop strategies. One thing we're doing internally, part of my title under the innovation side is leading our innovation lab. And we're on a consistent basis looking at what strategy do we need today for AI and our staff. What strategy will we need for tomorrow? Now, that is changing rapidly, but as a strategic consulting partner, that's a space where there's a lot of value to be added. And so helping organizations with that strategy, the digital transformation, and really bridging that gap of where we are currently operating and how we've operated in the past with legacy operations, a legacy approach to the work that we do, to a digitally transformed way of doing work that's aided by and assisted by some of the AI tools that are available today. With that, helping to elevate skill sets. One of the things that KRA brings to offer with consulting is also training in key areas that I mentioned earlier: fiscal management, business services, HR, or what we call our people and culture, on helping companies to develop culture. So with that comes some of the trending topics that are related to AI around durable skills. What are the durable skills that will outlast any changes in technology? Adaptability to the changes in technology, both from the practitioners, but also in how we operate. And then lastly, I would really point to employer alignment. How are we supporting the companies and the businesses? Because businesses help to drive workforce development, in-demand business opportunities. So how are we aligning our partnerships with businesses in local communities? So I see consulting really being able to provide a value in that space, shifting from technical assistance to really being a strategic partner in that space. And I think the last part of your question was around how is KRA preparing for that? I would say our focus is, again, in helping organizations and the workforce boards, the systems that we're partnered with, not only to lead now, but to lead for the future. Not just being responsive to it, but being proactive, thinking strategically, midterm, long-term, around some of these very topics that we're discussing. AI, making informed decisions, helping to implement informed solutions that really drive operational success. I would say, in addition to that, is supporting leaders. Leadership development is something that's at the core of KRA. If you look at our core values: knowledge, responsibility, and achievement, that's really the progression. It starts with knowledge. It starts with taking ownership in terms of what we're responsible for, and then achievement. That's really the arc, the overarching success that tells a story that is both for a company, but also in our approach to consulting. We expect to bring our knowledge. We take responsibility for our partnership, and we expect to see achievement, to see the results, to see the impact. So if we can leave that mark on an organization that we're partnered with, I see that as being successful. And so that's part of our approach now in this direction is what we're preparing for now, but also for the future as an organization.
Well, thank you so much. My last question for you, Jonathan, really is, people listening to this and they're saying, boy, that does sound interesting. I'd like to find out more about how I might be able to talk to KRA about potentially utilizing consulting services. What's the best way for people to do that?
You can go to our website at www.kra.com, and we actually have a services tab that is specific to our consulting services and our solutions. You can go there and you can contact us, and we'll set up a discovery session. And that discovery session is designed for us to get to know you, for you to get to know us. We'll talk about your goals, your strategic plans, also pain points, areas where there are opportunities. And through that discovery process, our team will work to develop and design a solution with a roadmap, shared responsibility, measurable outcomes for success, so that we can walk away knowing that there is a successful outcome that's planned, but also the implementation and the plan to see that through. And so, again, go to our website. You can reach out to me, follow us on LinkedIn as well. Me personally, Jonathan Overall, at LinkedIn, and also our company website that has a profile on LinkedIn. Reach out to us either way, and we'd love to set up a discovery session with you, get to know you, and to see success together.
Jonathan, again, thank you for coming on as a guest today, sharing your words of wisdom, and for being an amazing host of KRA's The Hub.
Definitely, Doug. We'll have to do this more often.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to KRA's The Hub. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. To learn more about KRA Corporation, visit www.kra.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.